Dawn climbed stiffly across the open flatlands. The sun showed restraint, easing upward without enthusiasm for breaking quiet patterns. Early rays stretched across, the weathered beams of the ancestral shelter that stored history in its boards. Dust particles floated upward as the light found them, wandering without direction, pale, thin, transient, buried beneath a raised patch of sun-dried grass. An Apache woman exhaled uneven breaths. Panic shook her lungs lightly, steady but small, rhythmic but unwilling. She traveled farther than survival recommended. Fatigue wrapped her frame tightly. She was 22. She carried intelligence, forged quickly by necessity. She already knew the price of exposing betrayal. 3 nights earlier, she challenged a respected elder who poisoned her family's name with deception. Her accusations carried pain-hardened edges. The community ignored them. They delivered exile as policy. They handed her the dark, a ripped blanket, thin resolve. Unsolicited isolation. She crossed the plains with her spine coated in endurance, but her pulse rattled uncertainty against her ribs. The old shelter surfaced like temporary salvation. Dry hay scattered beneath a familiar scent of aged timber. A roof waited overhead. It held no promises. The woman slipped inside, letting night fold over her eyelids. Convinced exhaustion would offer unconscious escape until hunger or danger intervened. The cowboy stepped in at first light. 29, he was tall, deliberate, unmarred by spectacle. His steps landed logic into the dirt. His boots traced dust, not dominance. He searched for a lost calf, not a casualty concealed beneath wind-shaped survival theories. When his line of sight collided with her, stillness held him in place. He registered pain like an old frequency, recognized but The woman's eyes snapped upward, alert and sharpened by resistance expectations. She prepared for outrage, for force, for reprimand. His reaction refused the script she studied in hardship. The cowboy descended slowly to his knee. The motion was intentional but quiet. He lowered himself like an equation, solved step by step without exclamation points. The woman watched restraint replace her expectation systems. The cowboy studied fragility without weaponizing its moment. The plains listened. The barn held still. The world balanced in an unspectacular decision that broke no laws, only precedent. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "Pack your things. You're coming home with me." The words struck harder than any blow. She stared, unable to trust them. Kindness had betrayed her before. Cruelty she understood. Compassion, she whispered that she had nothing to pack. He nodded as though expecting it. He extended a hand haul fay, then let it settle on his knee, offering without insisting. When Charisse, it was slow and shaky. He kept a respectful distance as he led her out in tow the cool morning. She followed Wetzel's steps behind, not from distrust, but from the cautious instinct of Samayan who had survived too much. Their ski stretched pale and wide above them, and for the first time in days she felt less alone under its immensity. His house stood a short walk from the barn, its porch wrapped in quiet stillness. Hay opened the door and stepped aside. She hesitated, brushing her fingers against frame as though testing its reality. Inside, the air smelled of cedar and yesterday's bread. A lamp burned in Thekina, casting a soft amber glow. Hay guided her toward a chair near the hut. Every movement was slow, deliberate, as though he feared startling her. He poured warm water into a tin cup and set food on the table. Cornbread, beans, a small piece of dried meat. Her stomach tightened with hunger. She tried to hide. "Eat, if you want," Hema mewed, turning away so she wouldn't feel watched. She ate slowly, then with growing hunger. Warmth spread through her limbs like timid hope. She glanced at him. He stood by the window, hands loose on the sill, eyes on the open land. Loneliness rested on him like an old coat. "Why help me?" she asked. He shrugged lightly. Nobody deserves to be cold and alone. The simplicity settled her, loosening something tight inside her chest. She expected questions, suspicion, conditions. Instead, she found a man who offered gentleness without demand. It terrified her. It soothed her. He showed her the small guest room. The bed looked too soft, too safe. He lit the hallway lamp, saying softly that it would help her if she woke at night. She lay down carefully. Sleep tugged at her lee. For the first time in years, she surrendered without fear. Outside, night whispered promises she didn't dare believe. Inside, the cowboy paused in the hallway, listening to the steady rhythm of her breathing. It surprised him that her presence felt less like intrusion and more like the first stir of something missing from his quiet life. When dawn returned, she opened her eyes slowly. Peace settled over her, unfamiliar yet gentle. She did not know if she belonged here, or if belonging was possible for someone cast into exile. But she sensed with startling clarity that her life had shifted the moment he spoke those impossible words in the barn. Yet, vain as she rose from the bed, her legs still unsteady from yesterday's miles, she sensed the fragile balance of this new beginning. Whatever waited in Thehor's ahead, kindness, conflict, or the slow blooming of trust. She knew she stood at the edge of a life she had never imagined for herself. And with that awareness came a quiet, trembling resolve to face whatever truth this unexpected shelter might reveal. He found her sitting near the corral fence long, after the light had thinned into blue dusk. The earth was cooling, Thea sharpening, and the storm building far off the horizon like a vast animal breathing in its sleep. She didn't move when he approached. A 25-year-old Apache woman with a posture carved from discipline. Yet something in her shoulders sagged as if a weight Sharefest to name pressed her forward. He stepped a few paces behind her, boots crunching softly, careful not to intrude more than he already had simply by existing in her line of sight. "We shall be inside before the storm breaks," he said. His voice was low, even quite enough that it did not demand anything from her. She kept looking at. "Storms don't frighten me." "I know," he replied, "but you're hurt, whether you want to admit it or not." She stiffened. The reaction was small, almost, but he noticed. He noticed seed of everything about her. From the defensive engine she carried like armor to the griff that flickered in her eyes whenever she thought no one was. Her pride was not a brittle thing. It was tempered by years of losing more than she ever received. Beauty even pride had limits when exhaustion wounded itself into the bones. The wind-shifted dust spiraled above them. The clouds gathered, dark and restless. Charisse, slowly, as if movement itself had ached. "If you think saving me gives you the right to measure my strength, you're mistaken." "I didn't save you," he answered. "I just appeared to be the one who reached you." She finally turned. Her eyes harp assessing, trained by survival, Thomas Trust's softness rested on his face. He was a quiet man, 30 years old, with a calm presence of someone who had lived long in silence. He didn't crowd her, hadn't tried to tame her. He simply stood still, which was something men rarely afforded her. Stillness without. You think too kindly, she said, though the words carried less heat than she intended. Most men take credit for what fate already chose. He shrugged slightly. Then I'll take none. A flicker of confusion crossed her features, as if she couldn't decide whether he was macking her or genuinely meant it. She studied him again, slower this time. Her breath eased a little, though she masculinized quickly. The wind rose again, cold and rattling the corral gate. The horses shifted nervously. A distant rumble echoed across the plain. He glanced toward the barn. Storm's Clazathon, it looks. And you're still standing here, she replied. So are you. They shared a brief totzalance. Suspended between them, like Athen Ridge, they hadn't yet chosen Tokros. She looked away first, but not out of dismissal. Out of uncertainty, he stepped back. I'll give you space. But come inside before the lightning starts. When he turned to leave, her voice stopped him. Not sharp this time, but around the edges, scraped by something she didn't want to expose. Why don't you ask? She said. He paused. Ask what? Why I tried to take your horse that night. He faced Harrigan, but his expression stood. If you wanted to tell me, you would. She blinked, taken aback. You aren't curious. Of course I'm curious, he said. But curiosity isn't more important than what someone's ready to share. The answer unsettled her in a way threats never could. Honesty was a blade, she understood. Gentleness, lightning pulsed along the clouds like veins of fire. She drew a breath. My tribe fell apart, not from enemies, but from hunger and sickness. My sister, she's young, ran before me. I thought if I could reach her faster, if I had a horse, maybe she wouldn't die alone in the dark. Her jaw clenched. That's why I didn't speak at first. The silence was scint, judgmental or heavy. It was space. I'm sorry, he said finally. The simplicity of it struck her harder than pity. She looked away again. But this time it wasn't to hide anger. A low crack of thunder boomed. A flash tore open the sky. He assessed the sky, one seam. We need to get inside now. She nodded once, almost reluctantly, but followed him toward the barn. The wind was fierce by then, moving hard across the open land. They reached the barn doors just as the first sheet of cold rain slammed down. Inside, the dimness smelled of hay, leather, and the faint metallic tang of the storm. The barn trembled with each gust. The horse shuffled anxiously, hooves scraping thick. He checked the latches. This roof holds, but the wind's serious. Stay Nerth Center. She stood near the stalls, arms folded. You aren't afraid? He shook his head. Fear isn't useful here. She watched Heimer's thunder cracked overhead. His composure wasn't bravado. It was lived experience shaped by solitude and survival, the same elements that but in him, it settled differently. He was quiet, not because he hid things, but because he weighed them. The rain hammered the roof in furious waves. Lightning illuminated the born interior in violent flashes. A sudden burst of wind tore at the doors, ripping one hinge halfway loose. Shaland first, grabbing the swinging jaw, boots sliding against the slick floor. He joined her instantly, bracing his weight against the wood. The storm roared, pulling at them like a living force. Let go, he shouted. It could tear your arm off. She tightened her. If it breaks open, the horses will bolt. Their eyes locked through their both refused to yield. Together, they forced the door shut, muscular straining. and he managed to drive Thelich into place with a sharp decisive. They stumbled back, the barn shuddered, but held. The storm's rage shifted to a steady, pulsing rhythm around them. She exhaled, then said quietly, "You didn't thave to hold it with me. I wasn't going to let you take that risk alone." She studied him, something shifting under her guarded stare. Not trust, not yet, but the beginning of its shape. Outside the storm still raged, but inside something steadier had taken root between them. Small yet undeniable,